Many like to point out the differences between the Old and New Covenants. But are those differences biblical or invented by traditions of men to suit their own doctrine and theology? We are told to test everything, which includes testing our faith and ourselves. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Test everything. Hold fast what is good. 2 Corinthians chapter 13. Examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. Or do you not realize this about yourselves, that Yeshua the Messiah, or Jesus Christ, is in you, unless indeed you fail to meet the test? Amos 3:7 reads, "Surely Yahweh God does nothing unless he reveals his secret to his servants the prophets." If Amos is correct, then everything that the new covenant was to become should be detailed in the prophets. Otherwise, according to Amos, God would not nor did not do anything. So if we were smart, we would examine what the prophets said about the new covenant. Here is what we would discover. The Spirit of God would be given to his people, and then they would keep the whole law of God. We find this in Ezekiel 36:26 through 27. "And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules." This is consistent with what Christ taught that the Spirit would do in John chapter 14, verse 26, and John chapter 16, verse 12, saying that the Spirit would lead us into truth. And according to the Bible, the truth is the law of God, the Torah. Psalm 119, verse 142. "Your righteousness is forever, and your law, Torah, is truth." We also learn that the prophets said that the new covenant will be different than the old covenant, in the sense that the fathers broke the old covenant. Jeremiah 31, verse 32. "Not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares Yahweh." Thus, consistent with what we already reviewed in Ezekiel 36, Yahweh says what the solution will be. We are told in the very next verse in Jeremiah that the new covenant would consist of the law of God being written on our heart. Jeremiah 31:33. "For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahweh. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people." This, of course, is saying the exact same thing as the prophet Ezekiel was already noted to say. The Spirit leads us to want to do from our heart the law of God, because Yahweh removes our stony heart that is against the law of God and gives us a new heart that is after the law of God. And, as we already noted, that is the purpose of the Spirit according to Yeshua as well. Lastly, the only other change noted in the New Covenant is that we shall not have to teach our brothers anymore. That everyone will already fully know the Lord, which, of course, is saying the same thing as one knows the Word of God. Jeremiah 31:34. "And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more." We still have to teach today, but someday, when everyone knows the Word of God perfectly, then we will no longer have to teach them. This, of course, has not been fully realized from the New Covenant just yet, and will not be fully realized until the first resurrection, in which we will be in our glorified bodies. See Daniel 12 or 1 Corinthians 15. To summarize, here is what the New Covenant is according to the prophets. Number 1, we have the Spirit to want to obey, from our heart, the law of God, the truth. Number 2, someday we will not have to teach any longer, because all will know the whole Word of God. Do you see anything in the prophets about the law of God changing at all or being abolished? Let me ask that again. Do you see anything in the prophets about the commandments being abolished or removed? Keep looking, and you might be looking for a long time because it is simply nowhere to be found. Now remember what Amos said. If the prophets did not say that God was going to do it, then God didn't do it, nor is He going to do it. So if you believe some commandments were abolished in the New Covenant, but you cannot find any mention of it beforehand in the prophets, well, then you sort of have a problem. Just a thought.
It is because of you, our generous supporters, who make it possible to offer these high-quality teachings completely free of charge. If you feel led to support 119 Ministries so that we can continue this effort, please visit testeverything.net and click on the Support 119 tab. Learn how you can partner with us to take the whole Word of God to the nations.